Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, October 30th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the Vindman testimony yesterday blows up Trump's transcript talking point. Meanwhile, Democrats unveil the impeachment process resolution. Chicago teachers strike in day 10. Deal, or at least a vote on a deal, could be imminent. Speaking of votes, the U.S. House votes to recognize the Armenian genocide. Ilhan Omar abstaining. Meanwhile, Mick Mulvaney on the outs. Just as Sean Spicer iced out of meeting the Pope, Mulvaney not invited to the al-Baghdadi killing video. In Missouri, the Missouri health director kept a spreadsheet of Planned Parenthood patients' menstrual cycles to monitor their abortions. In a new report, many of the world's major cities may be underwater within 30 years. The NCAA board approves athlete compensation, at least for the superstars, in terms of their images, their likenesses, their endorsements. And the Brazilian Supreme Court will investigate Bolsonaro's involvement in the assassination of Maria Franco. And New York sees 2 big lawsuits, shareholders versus Exxon and trafficking victims against a major hotel chain. All this and more on today's program. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. A couple of just house cleaning notes right off the bat, so I do not forget. Go sign up for our Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. We're just at the brink of passing 10,000 followers.
We already did it.
Forget it.
But do it anyway.
Do it anyways, folks. And also, sign up for the AM Quickie. Give us a review. You can go to amquickie.com and subscribe through any of the... It's all free. Totally free. 5 minutes a day. You will get the top headlines. Send us a review. If you have any critiques, always open to that. Send us one at majorityreporters@gmail.com. And also, check out the app. It has been completely refreshed. You can find the AM Quickie there. You can... watch the show live via YouTube through the app. You can listen to the show live through the app. You can IM the show through the app. You can call the show through the app. And there's other stuff. You can search the archives through the app. You can find it at majorityapp.com. Now let's get into this. So, as you know, the Blaze's Dave Rubin blocked me some time ago, and I don't know if that's the Blaze policy. I don't know if you are on the Blaze, you need to block me. I doubt it. I can't imagine. I don't think I'm blocked by the Blaze owner, Glenn Beck. But once Dave Rubin went on the Blaze, he blocked me. There are other people on the Blaze. Like I say, they don't block me. And in a bit of synergy, the Blaze's Dave Rubin appeared on Fox's Tucker Carlson show. And because there's nothing a falsely aggrieved white guy likes more than another falsely aggrieved white guy. And so this is where the aggrievement meets. And of course, Dave lives in California, so they're bringing him on to talk about these California wildfires. Now, everybody knows why we have these wildfires. It is because PG&E, the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, has hired too many people who are not white, as Dave helpfully explains to us.
And he joins us tonight. So, Dave, thanks so much for coming on. You moved to California because it's a beautiful place, and I agree with that. You've seen it really degrade in the time that you've been there, but PG&E strikes me as
Pause it for one
almost
second.
a metaphor.
I happen to know that the reason why Dave moved to California was because in New York, he just couldn't find work. As a comedian, I've been told this by multiple people, not just other comedians, but actually even writers, newspaper writers who used to write for comedy. Used to get emails from Dave every time he had a tweet that went viral back in the day. And but I digress. Now he's with the Blaze. He's very successful. Continue.
It's almost a metaphor for the destruction of the state. So here's the utility, which doesn't really know anything about its own infrastructure, but knows everything about the race of its employees. How did we get there?
It's just unbelievable. Look, I've been in LA. I'm in LA right now. I live about a minute away from one of the big fires that's still going. I have friends that are evacuated. Los Angeles, putting politics aside, in Southern California, might be the most beautiful part of the United States.
Yes.
The problem right now is that everything from academia to public utilities to politics, everything that goes woke, that buys into this ridiculous progressive ideology, that cares about what contractors are LGBT or how many black firemen we have or white this or Asian that. Everything that goes that road eventually breaks down. It is not how freedom is supposed to operate. What is supposed to happen, Tucker, imagine if your house was on fire. Would you care what the public utility or what the fire company, what contractor they brought in, what gender or sexuality or any of those things he or she was? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Who would care?
And right now we've got a situation. Of course you wouldn't care, and we've got a situation right now where we're doing preemptive blackouts in this state, which I think is the 11th largest economy in the entire world. We do preemptive blackouts because they don't want to put too much pressure on the grid. I mean, try to imagine the absurdity.
Now, I'm trying to figure out how these two things are related. Is he suggesting that PG&E is so dominated by the black firemen or the LGBTQs or whatnot that they don't, that they're the reason why there are blackouts? Like he's saying one thing, like they're obsessed. Like they know the percentages of how many LGBTQ employees they have or Latino employees they have, but they're not doing grids. So are we to believe that these two things that he's referring are related? In other words, is the reason why PG&E is not doing the proper maintenance on their lines and running is it because there are people who are LGBTQ or Latino or black that are running these things?
They have too many hormones.
Maybe he'll wrap it up. Maybe he'll bring it together. Here we go.
Time for the grand synthesis.
Too much pressure on the grid. I mean, try to imagine the absurdity of what's going on here. And I hate to tell you, but we just don't have enough clear thinking, say more libertarian or conservative-minded people in California to fight what the progressives are doing to the state.
But if you can't keep the lights on and you can't keep the place from burning down, you've reached the point where there's no kind of lying about it anymore. Like, it's fallen apart. It's a disaster. It's not civilized anymore.
You know what? If I've learned anything by living in California,
not civilized anymore. That's an interesting choice of words.
A lot of interesting rhetoric here.
Yeah, civilized is a very interesting way of saying that we have a failed electrical grid, and that is not civilized. That's just a weird way of
I have a
expressing.
graph here that shows the correlation of Chicano studies departments with wildfires. And a lot of people want you to focus on climate change, but I think if you look at this, I mean, the numbers are stunning. The whole thing's crazy.
No, it's a biblical explanation for a natural disaster.
Let's see what else he's got. Maybe it's so uncivilized, these guys.
And Los Angeles specifically, it's that no matter what happens, ideology seems to trump rationality.
Yes.
So in the 6 years that I've been here, the amount of homeless encampments have expanded. Virtually every exit you get off the 405 or the 101, there are now homeless people sitting right there, or actually that have basically built structures at the exits. Now it's like if raising taxes on everybody and supposedly the progressive policies that care about poor people, if these things worked, wouldn't the places that progressive policies were enacted, wouldn't there be less homeless? Wouldn't there be less gun violence? All the things that they talk about. But no, there's always more. This is not a coincidence. These policies don't work. But if you just don't really think about them, if you think, oh, we just have to throw money at things, and they magically get better while you do whatever you want to do in your life and don't want to really think about the issues, then it all works. And that's what we all have to fight. I mean, everyone across the country, because, I travel the country often and people will say to me, Dave, you got to stop the people from California moving here to Utah or moving here to Denver or moving here to Texas, because then they bring the bad policies of California elsewhere.
Build a wall. But, walls are not just for our exterior borders, but that's just, something to think about.
Okay.
What?
Because then what happens is people move to other places, but the places where they're liberal, the bad things are happening because they're trans. So the whole thing just really doesn't make any sense. But that's the situation we're in here today.
What policies is he talking about here?
I am quite sure if PG&E, I want to stay on PG&E because this is they're playing footage of thousands upon thousands of acres burning. We could even lose the Reagan Library, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a B-side of me doing We Are the World with the N-word in it.
And the idea that if PG&E, as he says, throw money at it. The idea that if PG&E threw money at restoring and rebuilding the infrastructure, in making sure that trees are not overhanging the power lines, or maybe burying some of the power lines in some very tenuous areas. The idea that doing this wouldn't help is absurd. I mean, this is a guy who's all about ideas and intellectualism. Yet, he doesn't even raise up the fact that over the past 5 years, PG&E has thrown off $4.5 billion to its shareholders. And when Dave was questioned on this absurdity on Twitter, he linked to this opinion piece. People were questioning his opinion, and he defended it with somebody else's opinion from the Wall Street Journal, talking about stakeholder capitalism in action. By the left's lights, PG&E is a perfect corporate citizen. Liberal California Pauls attack it anyway. So in other words, despite the fact that I say that they think PG&E is a perfect corporate citizen, they're still attacked anyways. So that sort of leaves a question. Well, then why would they do that? Now, she doesn't answer that question. Alyssa Finley of the Wall Street Journal, Fox-owned Wall Street Journal editorial board. She says PG&E exemplifies the left's stakeholder model, according to which businesses are accountable not only to their shareholders, but to their workers, the environment, and local communities, and society at large. In practice, it means businesses exist to serve their political overlords. Now, the idea that PG&E exemplifies the stakeholder model and they're not accountable to their shareholders, $4.5 billion over the past 5 years, $1 billion a year practically, given to their shareholders as opposed to be put back into developing the infrastructure. And, we see this with electric companies all across the country. When I lived upstate, everybody said after Niagara Mohawk sold out to National Grid, Nobody came by anymore to cut down the trees that were threatening the wires until the wires fell, because it was just cheaper for them to do it that way. But who pays for that? Well, everybody who loses power pays for it, because they can't go to work, or they have to throw out their food, or they have to figure out another way of creating heat for themselves. This is a perfect example of privatizing the profits and socializing the costs. Now, her argument is that somehow they're getting the state law requiring them to get renewable sources of energy by 2030 she just throws it in there. It doesn't quite, the line drawn, just like what Dave Rubin did. The line drawn between their premise that this is all about the fact that they have 43.9% of their employees belonging to ethnic minorities, and there's fires, so ipso facto, those two must be related. But we don't quite see the line. They have detailed records on who their employees are, I guess. But that doesn't prohibit them from getting detailed records on their transmission towers and wires. There's a reason why they don't do that, because they don't want to make it public how much they are not investing in their infrastructure, which is why what we should be doing is taking this company and either have it be owned by the state or owned by the federal government. There is no reason why we need this company to be private and pay out $4.5 billion in dividends to its shareholders. We could take those $4.5 billion and put them into the infrastructure and make it incredibly safe. And therefore, the state doesn't have to pay for the firemen, even though half of them apparently are prisoners getting $1 a day or something. And so that people don't have to lose their homes and insurance rates don't have to go up. I mean, this is not to mention, obviously, in a heightened environment for fires because of climate change. But this isn't going away. And so the bottom line is, looking forward, do you want to pay out to shareholders all the money that should be going into building infrastructure? Or do you want to continue this until it just gets completely untenable, where you have multiple weeks of blackouts? Now, Dave Rubin can blame the fact that it's LGBTQ hiring and
LGBTQ.
It sounds like he
and
thinks
minorities.
PG&E is responsible for hiring all the firefighters, right? And there's just like a big long line of
PG&E set
white
out
men
a directive
waiting to fight the fires, and PG&E is like, no, we have to wait for a disabled Latina to walk up.
PG&E sent out a directive from the top to the stakeholder model, because that's what the left likes, to say that only transgender disabled people can fight the fires. And they might be nice people. I mean, look, I'm married to a guy, but I don't think they have the mobility.
Look at the data that she cites. Stakeholders, those are in quotes, were mentioned 13 times in PG&E's 2018 shareholder report, compared with 3 times in 2014 and 0 in 2011. Now, it really begs the question, what's going on in 2012 and 2013 and 2015 and 16? But I have a feeling that contravenes her point. But I don't even know what the point is. Like, as if putting the word stakeholder in your annual report and somehow prevents you from actually investing. I mean, this is such Bush League distraction from the main point that's here, that it would be stunning if Dave Rubin wasn't involved with it. I mean, honestly, it's like, who can we get to actually come on and say this stuff in public?
You want to talk about the apocalyptic forest fires consuming the most important state in the country? I got you covered. It's the gay people. And by the way, I have a husband.
That's the other thing. Apparently, somebody said something to him like, this is a little bit racist of you and bigoted. Because, of course, like, you are somehow implying that if we hire 48% of our employees are so-called ethnic minorities, if we do that, then it's going to lead to this type of stuff. And here's Here is Dave Rubin. Now, he's blocked me on Twitter, and so I had to take a screenshot. But this is Dave Rubin saying, "Hi, Ana Navarro. Nothing I said was racist or homophobic."
That's a great way to begin a sentence.
Right.
Hi, Ana Navarro. Nothing I said was racist or homophobic.
And where's the proof? Where's the proof from this guy who believes that identity politics are ruining everything? Here's the proof. Actually, not that it matters, but I'm married to a man.
Seems like it matters a little to him.
Apparently, it does matter in this argument for whatever reason he seems to think. It has.
I'm gay. I call take back.
And then here's a piece in the Wall Street Journal on how wokeness is affecting PG&E. He wrote P, S, and G in California because white men are so competent. It is not a piece which explains how wokeness, it's an opinion that there shouldn't be wokeness there, but there is absolutely no, because of this, that.
You know
at
what's
all
super
involved in this.
woke? Prison slave labor.
That's super woke. And he just says, "Have a great day." And then, of course, he goes on to beg Judd Apatow to come on his show because they went to high school together. We share an identity in that we went to high school together. Do you want to have me on?
That's so sad.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So there it is. Dave Rubin.
Judd Apatow is not open to her ideas. And by the way, Jed, I'm actually married to a man. So
not that it matters.
Not that it matters.
But the funny thing is that, again, how does he argue that Judd should come on his show? By their shared identity. We went to the same high school together.
I'm surrounded by standpoint epistemology.
Yeah. I can't get outside of my own viewpoint. All I can do is filter it through my own experience, which
Folks,
is an intense desire to get paid.
Feedback loops interrupted.
Folks, Babbel offers you 14 different languages you can learn. I do not believe any of them are Dave Rubin-ese, but nevertheless, Babbel will get you speaking a new language quickly and with confidence. You can choose, like I said, from 14 different languages: Spanish, French, Italian, Danish, I believe it was, Russian, Portuguese.
Brazilian Portuguese.
Oh, and I am wearing a T-shirt from Mexico today.
There you go.
So
Oaxaca.
topical.
Lula Libre.
Spoke a lot of Spanish in
Muy
Oaxaca.
bueno. Babbel's teaching method in speech recognition technology has been proven effective across multiple studies. Their lessons are lovingly created by over 100 language experts. Those are human beings, folks. They're not machines that translate or algorithms. They're engaging and convenient lessons. They last about 10 to 15 minutes. You learn through interactive dialogue so you can perfect your pronunciation and accent. Babbel is available as an app. It's available online. Your progress syncs across all of the platforms that you use. So today I'm using my iPad. Tomorrow I'm using my iPhone or my Android. And then, you know what? I'm going to sit in front of the computer today just to, I don't know, because the kids have taken all my devices, whatever it is. But we're going to, we got to start, maybe we need to do is like just get a start date for this. Should we do like the first week in November and do the Babbel challenge?
What does the Babbel challenge entail?
Babbel's challenge is going to be like who speaks Spanish quick sooner than others. We got to
Maybe we should have like people have to. I think people should have to IM like phrases, and whoever can translate the phrase the best in their language.
Oh, that's a good idea. So that it's like a completely random
test.
Oh, that is good. Because you guys listen to this show, Babbel has a very special offer for you. Go to Babbel.com, select the language of your choice. Once you try for free and are ready to sign up, select the 3-month option. Babbel will give you an additional 3 months for free. That's with promo code majority. That's 6 months for the cost of 3 with promo code majority. Go to Babbel, BABBEL.com. Enter promo code majority. Babbel, speak a new language with confidence. Also, this is very helpful for me, and particularly when I travel, regardless of where it is. I don't know if it comes off. I'm a little bit neurotic. I'm a little bit concerned. I have, with my my online security, all sorts of security.
Do you say?
It's true. I use an incredibly intricate web of passwords with multiple email addresses that I don't associate with them, so that I never have any, worries about my online accounts or whatnot. And Norton 360 with LifeLock has really actually it has helped. How you spend your time and what you listen to, totally within your control. Your personal information, though, I think we all know this, totally different story. Whenever you shop, whenever you bank, whenever you browse online, your personal information gets out there. You lose control of it. You're exposed to cybercrime. Thankfully, there's Norton 360 with LifeLock to help you get back a sense of control and protect yourself and your personal information. It's an all-in-one membership for your cyber safety that gives you device security, identity theft protection, and a VPN for online privacy and more. Plus, if there's an identity theft-related problem, they have agents who will work to fix it. Now, no one can prevent all cybercrime and identity theft, but Norton 360 with LifeLock is a powerful ally to help protect you in today's connected world. So I will go to the site and I will check my profile every now and then just to make sure that nothing's up. And I can go and see all the times, like when I rent an apartment, when my credit's been checked, or, if I get sucked into getting one of those store credit cards because it's going to give you 25% off. I don't use it after that, but you get the credit thing and you can check it. And when they do that, I have my notifications turned on. So if there's anything going on with my bank statements, with my credit cards, boom, I get a text message that says something's up. Now, fortunately, because I use a wide web of intricate things and I don't, I stay away from certain areas where I will not get money from cash machines that are not official. I haven't had that problem, but God forbid, you want somebody to help you deal with that stuff if it goes wrong, or to help protect you from something going wrong. Sign up today for a Norton 360 with LifeLock membership. And because you're a Majority Report listener, you'll save 25% or more off your first year at norton.com/majority. That's norton.com/majority for 25% off. All right, little impeachment update. This was a bit of a problem yesterday for the White House. It's unclear at this point. We don't know. And I suspect, however, that well, let me put it this way. We don't know, but I suspect we might know who the original whistleblower spoke to. Remember, the original whistleblower filed their whistleblower complaint. They're from the CIA. They were talking to a wide range of people who were all expressing discomfort with what was going on with the relationship with Ukraine, with this sort of like outside group of people who were involved in it. Sunderland, who was the EU ambassador, Rudy Giuliani, who was Donald Trump's free personal lawyer, and others. And the CIA agent wrote up the whistleblower complaint. Now, they know who the whistleblower is on this committee. Apparently, Devin Nunes keeps trying to leak it in such a way. He can't find anybody who lacks the integrity to print it yet, but they will. They will. It'll end up being somebody like, what they desperately don't want is to have to give it to someone like Mike Cernovich. But I guarantee you, when this gets leaked, we will trace it back, and it will be a Mike Cernovich figure who has gotten this stuff and then puts it into the bloodstream. That's the way they do this. That nobody wants their fingerprints on it. And so until they find somebody unscrupulous like that, they can't start attacking the whistleblower. But the whistleblower is largely irrelevant, because the whistleblower just basically said, there are X number of individuals who I've spoken to who expressed reservations or problems with what went on. I suspect that we know who those people are already, even though we don't know who they are. In other words, it could be Vindeman, this Lieutenant Colonel Alex S. Vindeman, who is the top Ukraine expert on the National Security Council. He could have been one of those guys. We don't know. But the Intelligence Committee has a list of people they want to interview about this. And they must have got the list from somebody. And so I suspect this is where they started with the whistleblower list. Now, who knows? So in some respects, all of these people are whistleblowers, not official. But they were blowing the whistle to someone who said, I'm going to do the official complaint. So Vindman apparently, like I said, was the top Ukraine expert on the National Security Council. He was born in Ukraine when it was part of the Soviet Union. I guess he was part of the exodus of Soviet Jews who left, 35 years ago, 40 years ago. I know a couple of people like that. And on Tuesday, he told House impeachment investigators that the so-called transcript of the call between Trump and Zelensky was missing some very important words and phrases. And everyone sort of suspected this because of the ellipses that were there.
It's the private part of the conversation.
He attempted to include them. So basically what happens is this. They do a voice recognition in real time. I don't know why they don't do a recording. Supposedly they don't. It seems a little weird to me. But they do voice recognition in real time, and the computer spits out a transcript. But if you look at our show on YouTube, you can see that this is not always accurate. So what happens is the people who were listened on the call, various people, he was one of them, review the transcript, make corrections and whatnot. By the time they got the transcript, certain things had been omitted. And he was like, So
all because they didn't know that I had a transcript done by very, very talented people, word for word, comma for comma, done by people that do it for a living. We had an exact transcript.
Yeah. You know, the thing is whenever he hits these things, you know, it's like his big tell about a lie. Like, we had a totally detailed transcript, which of course means that we had a totally fixed transcript. So Vindman said, and this is the guy that the right-wingers would have you believe we can't trust because he was born in Ukraine. Vindman said the omissions included Mr. Trump's assertion that there were recordings of former Vice President Joe Biden discussing Ukraine corruption and an explicit mention by Ukraine's President Zelensky of Burisma Holdings, the energy company whose board employed Biden's son, Hunter. Vindman told House impeachment instigators that he tried to change the reconstructed transcript made by the White House staff to reflect the omissions, but while some of his edits appeared to have been successful, he said those two corrections were not made. He did not testify as to the motives. He just testified as to the facts as he saw them. Apparently, after the call, the colonel reported to what happened to a superior, explaining that I did not think it was proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen, and I was worried about the implications for the U.S. government's support of Ukraine. In other words, this was a quid pro quo, and they were demanding something that if they didn't get, the U.S. government would withdraw support from Ukraine because they were literally holding back the money. And this is all in his opening remarks. He added this would undermine U.S. national security. He also described confronting Gordon Sondland, who was the U.S. ambassador to the EU and a hotelier who donated $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration after the envoy pressed Ukrainian officials to help the Trump administration by investigating the Biden family. Now, here's the thing. We're going to hear all of this. We're going to get all of it. And it's going to be put out once they start with the official impeachment inquiry. Right now, what they're doing is they're still taking depositions. Today, the State Department Ukraine expert, Catherine Croft, will be coming in to testify. They also intend to depose State Department Ukraine expert Christopher Anderson on October 30th. The acting assistant secretary for international security affairs, because they're all Catherine Wheelbarger, is not sure she's going to come in. On Thursday, Timothy Morrison, Morrison was mentioned in the text messages that we read originally 3 or 4 weeks ago. He is the National Security Council's Russia and Europe director. There's going to be Robert Blair, senior advisor to acting chief of staff Mick Mulvaney, is going to come in. There's a bunch of other people coming in, and what they're doing is they're covering every aspect of this. They're trying to determine, get people deposed and have them tell, what is the tick-tock on how the money was held up? Where did the order to hold the money up come from? What was the reason given to hold up the money? And I suspect some of these other people who are Ukraine experts who probably were in the room on the call or can give background as to the importance of this money to Ukraine's security and how that relates to our national security. They're just building the entire case. And if they're smart in the Democratic caucus, that's an important if, they have some trial lawyers who are sitting down and saying, this is how we're going to present this to the American public. We're going to build this case brick by brick. We have very big bricks. They are very sturdy. They are very wide. And we are going to build this case, and we're going to show the American public it. So in the coming weeks, I would guess after Thanksgiving, we're going to start to see public hearings. Now, they want to vote on this before the December break and Christmas. I don't see how they're going to do that. Maybe they'll do a whole week. If they do it all in 1 week, we may just do all our coverage of that. I have a feeling they're not going to be able to do it that quickly. But apparently they don't want to. They don't want to distract from the Iowa caucuses. I think that's stupid. It's a perfect companion piece. Dominate the news. Iowa caucuses, impeachment. No room for Donald Trump to do whatever insanity he's going to do as a way of, no story about PG&E hiring too many ethnic minorities.
You got so many fires because you have black firemen, and I can say that because I'm married to a man.
There you go.
It's pretty easy to call me racist for saying that trans Indonesian people are causing LA's fires. But then, we look around. Oh, whoa, wait a second. I'm married to a man.
What, you don't want to have a conversation?
I'm against the death penalty. So, the Democrats are going to vote, I believe, in the next 2 days. I think it's on Thursday. The vote comes from a resolution which reaffirms their impeachment inquiry. It will enable public hearings. It will release the witness interviews that have already been taken by the House committees. So everything that is being said now, we're going to have access to. And it will allow the president and his attorneys to cross-examine these witnesses, which should be funny. The resolution states that after the inquiry phase is over, the investigating committees will send their findings to the House Judiciary Committee, which will determine whether to recommend articles of impeachment. Now, the four House committee chairs, Government Oversight, Intel, Judiciary, and I think it's Financial Services, say that they've already collected, the information they've already collected paints the picture of a president who has abused his power by using multiple levers of government to press a foreign country to interfere in the 2020 election. Following in the footsteps of the previous impeachment inquiries, the next phase will move from closed depositions to open hearings where the American people will learn firsthand about the president's misconduct. Apparently, in the Nixon impeachment, they did this depositions in the Senate. Then it went back to the House, and that's when it got public. And then it went back to the Senate for, or would have, for the conviction. Liz Cheney has a problem with it. Who cares? And so that's what's going to happen. It's moving forward. There are no more arguments for the Republicans. They're now saying that, because some of these depositions were taken in private, even though we're going to see them publicly, and even though the president will have the opportunity to cross-examine these witnesses, poison tree, poison fruit, yada, yada, yada. I mentioned the Chicago teachers strike. They've been on strike for 10 days. the teachers are pissed because Lori Lightfoot ran, at least in part, on trying to protect the teachers, and suddenly there's no money for increasing the number of classrooms, diminishing the number of students in each classroom. There are 40 kids a class. That's too many. That's just way too many. It's too hard to teach with 40 different kids in a class. It's just too difficult. And it's a problem for the students. CTU officials said that there was a possibility of a tentative agreement that could emerge as early as this morning. And with an attempt of trying to put teachers back into school, they've been out since October 16th. There have been 300,000 and 25,000 students and teachers, respectively, that have not gone to school. There are 500 schools in the Chicago public system, or a little more, but there's been pickets there. Here is some footage coming from, is this from Eric Blanc?
It is.
Eric Blanc, who we spoke to, I guess it was last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, about this teachers' strike. There are, I believe, 9 teachers who were arrested in a peaceful civil disobedience. And they did this, pause it for 1 second. They did this out, where was this? Is out in front of, not in front of a school, actually. It was in, they're from CTU Local 1. This was out in front of an enterprise.
Is this by Light of Houses? I thought this had something to do with...
I don't think it was in front of... It was in front of a developer building because the Chicago city government has given all sorts of tax breaks and subsidies to these developers.
No.
I know, it's shocking. I know you can't believe this. And yet, when it comes time for money for schools, nothing. So, I mean, this is what they're now doing. What the teachers are now doing is basically painting a story. I mean, this is all basically, this is public relations 101. We mentioned the fact about developers because these people went there and got themselves arrested. And that's the way that's why they do this. That's why you do these type of protests, to force society and those people who push narratives to bring this stuff up. And it's working. So here are some of those teachers who got arrested to make it clear that Chicago continues to support real estate interests and business interests over their children.
Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets! Whose kids? Our kids! 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 Our tips! Our tips! Our tips! Our tips!
I don't know what TIFs are.
How sick, though. I mean, just this is one thing that just on a basic visual level, it's like people who educate children are getting arrested because they're demanding the basic resources to do their job. I mean, this is like should be a 30-second story.
It's good. Good
Man,
to
we
use.
live in a sick society.
Good to use civil disobedience to take up police resources, like that van that they might have filled with like Jordans and tried to entrap some kids on like a poor neighborhood.
Like, they took the Jordan van. We're gonna give these kids. We got a whole new box of fucking Jordans, but the teachers are all like, "Oh, we should educate them. How about we throw them in the can when they try to get the new Air Ones?"
Well, you say they're not investing in their kids, but I doubt that the kids of the people making these cuts and carrying out this austerity are attending under-resourced public schools.
They're all, I mean, if I remember from the 2011 strike, a lot of those people were sending their kids to private schools. And TIF stands for Tax Increment Financing, which is a tool that Chicago uses to generate money for economic development in specific geographic areas. So they have like zones, and they basically are able to pay for generating, development, real estate development, but they won't pay for the schools.
I work overtime to send my kid to an art magnet school. So these ain't my children.
That's actually like literally.
No, that's literally true. I'm just doing it with a stupid voice.
There's two lawsuits happening in New York that I just want to make people aware of. One is a follow-up of sorts from the interview we did with Carissa Phelps in Las Vegas. She was the sex trafficking survivor. She had some controversial opinions that we had talked about on that day regarding Sesta Fosta and who is financing the sort of lax enforcement against sex workers. She didn't believe there was such a thing as sex workers, which I was quite clear with her, I think is a mistake, but
Soros is doing it.
That's basically what she had said. However, the basic premise of what she was talking about was that she had been trafficked as a 12-year-old girl. She was caught up in the foster care system, fell through the cracks, was preyed upon by a guy who trafficked her and ultimately had her as a working, basically to he would get paid for her to be raped in a hotel in wasn't Fresno, California, but a small town around there. Maybe it was Fresno. And she said 20 years later, when she had gotten out of that situation, she went back to these hotels, and the same thing was still happening. And after 10 years of activism, she basically decided that the route to follow was to sue. So about 95% of this stuff happens in motels that are owned by large corporations. And it was to sue these corporations to force them to either shut down or to protect and prevent these types of, businesses, in quotes, from operating out of their hotels. So it is a different attorneys working on this case, is my understanding. They are working somewhat with some of the lawyers that we spoke down to in Las Vegas. But this is in the, I think the New York Daily News or the Post, I think it was. A $10 million suit brought by a woman who is now in her 20s, identified by the initials SJ. She was a 10-year-old girl when she was raped, tortured, and beaten, sold for sex at two New York motels as the staff turned a blind eye to her obvious abuse. The suit was filed here just down the street in Brooklyn Federal Court. It's the first of its kind in New York. Claims that Wyndham Hotels and Resorts and Choice Hotels Corporation were complicit in the girl's abuse by operating franchises that chose, quote, to ignore the open and obvious presence of sex trafficking at their properties. She claims that she was sold for sex as many as 15 to 20 times a day at a Howard Johnson in Jamaica, Queens, operated by Wyndham, and an Econo Lodge in the Bronx, operated by Choice Hotels, between 2006 and 2009, between the ages of 10 and 13, when she was. She met her sex trafficker shortly after she escaped from a foster home where she was being sexually and physically abused, the suit says, adding that she entered foster care after her father was caught molesting her. The girl's trafficker, a 25-year-old man, gained her trust, took her virginity, forced her to service his clients, telling her how you make daddy happy is by making them happy. Wyndham and Choice Hotels have since signed on to a Tourism Child Protection Code of Conduct created by a leading anti-trafficking policy organization. And the Code of Conduct outlines 6 steps companies can take to prevent child sex trafficking. But, as we heard from Carissa Phelps, it's quite obvious what's going on there. They have cameras half the time anyways. They can see what's happening. They just choose to continue to profit off it. Occasionally, some other guests may call the cops because they see something, or there's some big violent event or something that calls for warrants calling the cops. The cops show up. They arrest the people in that moment and never come back until there is a specific reason to, as opposed to saying like, hey, this seems to be a functioning sex traffic den. So hopefully, and this is why when the system breaks down like this, because basically the greed, who knows what the relationships are between these hotel franchises and local governments. 3 or 4 hotels in a small municipality can make a big difference to the local economy. And that gives those people power over the city lawmakers or city managers or whatnot, and maybe the police departments. So this is where, lawsuits like this, where you can interrupt the sort of the business that's going on, are really important. Meanwhile, the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, has brought a lawsuit against ExxonMobil. It's in its 2nd week. This is basically, the argument is that Exxon knew, and we see Maura Healey in Massachusetts bringing a similar suit. Exxon knew about global climate change and lied to its shareholders as to what was going to happen in terms of climate change, and therefore, inflating the value of their stock or avoiding full transparency. And Rex Tillerson is going to be on the stand. They're going to be questioning him about the use of a burner email account where he used the name Wayne Trecker.
I remember that.
Wayne is Tillerson's middle name.
Such a man.
The Attorney General's staff discovered that along with the official email account under his name, under his real name, Tillerson had this other account. The company has destroyed tracker emails from before August 18th, 2015, because it had, quote, failed to disable its automatic file sweep deletion program.
Whoopsie daisy.
Yeah. That happens. For the tracker account, even though the emails were subject to subpoena, the state said in its memorandum about the emails. Stephen Gillers, a professor at New York School of Law, said in an interview, it's hard to understand how Tillerson's emails could not be highly relevant here. He spent a decade as CEO and chairman. To the extent that some emails are not available from his accounts or the accounts of others, the court loses information, and information is the cornerstone of accurate verdicts. So what they'll do is they'll eat the fine that they ultimately get for destroying the incriminating evidence.
Money well spent.
And we'll see what happens in the context of the greater lawsuit, whether there are any criminal charges that I could guess theoretically could be brought subsequent to a civil action. Folks, we're going to take a break and head into the fun half. We've been doing like long first halves this week.
Yeah. I feel like the real dark web is like emails of fossil fuel executives and financial institutions.
Just ideas.
That'd be awesome.
Just
ideas.
ideas.
Some hackers.
Why does Brett Weinstein keep making jokes about me lowering the collective IQ of the elevator? I'm married to a guy.
How come every time I get in the elevator with these guys, they say, going down?
Sam Harris threatened to kill me. His eye twitched even more than usual. He was almost as mad as when he talks about Muslims.
Folks, just a reminder, this show relies on you for its support. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. Jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you do, you not only get the first half without commercials, but you get a second half that you can choose to just listen. Today I'm just going to listen to the second half. Tomorrow I'll listen to the first half. Doesn't matter. It's all good. And not only that, you get to walk around saying, like, I'm a member of the Majority Report. That is a lot of cachet in certain very narrow, very, very narrow areas.
A lot of clout.
A lot of clout in very, very confined spaces. You can go to jointhemajorityreport.com. Again, if you're someone who wants access to the fun half, but you don't have the financial resources, send me an email, majorityreporters@gmail.com. We got a lot of requests over the past couple of days. And it's going to take us a little time to get to them, but we will get to them, I promise. Just put in the subject line, need the fun half, something like that. And we will get to you, I promise. We're digging through those emails, though. We get about, 300 emails a day now at that address. So it gets a little bit complicated. But also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Sign up for the AM Quickie. I keep telling you to do this, and I know you have not subscribed yet. You can subscribe for free. Just do it through iTunes or your Google Play or whatever. We have all the links to subscribe at amquickie.com. Also, follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube channel. Come on, guys. Let's do this. What are we at with the YouTube channel?
689,000.
Let's get to 700. Really? We're closing in on 700.
Crushing it, yeah.
I gotta get my button. I didn't get that button.
There's a button? What do you get? 666?
I went out with a buddy of mine, and he had two daughters who were like, one was in college, one was a senior in high school. They were asking how many subscribers I had on YouTube. And I said, like 650,000 or something like that. And they're like, oh, you must have the silver and the gold play buttons. And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And I just found out I was supposed to get it. So, get one for 700,000. Michael, what went on yesterday in this room?
We talked about the PG&E fires and what's really causing them. No, we did not. On last night's show, we talked with Shama Sawant, helped re-elect her to the Seattle City Council. Krystal Ball.
By doing that, you can make Jeff Bezos have wasted a lot of money.
That's right. It's good for the cause of socialism, and it's a nice shot at Dr. Evil. Then there's also Krystal Ball, and I talked about the commonalities of these global uprisings from Chile to Lebanon to Ecuador, why the press is ignoring it, why Pete Buttigieg is the worst, and how painful it is for CNN to deal with the Bernie Sanders surge. And then Harvey K. and I talked about Chicago, Wisconsin, and really went deep into the Chile story. You know what they're chanting in Chile? One of the chants in Chile is that neoliberalism was born here and it will die here.
Hell yeah.
And so we went really deep
from your mouth to God's ears, Chileans.
Indeed, with the Pinochet, CIA, Chicago Boys history and how it's playing out today, and then a whole bunch in the postgame, including these new revelations in Brazil. Patreon.com/TMBS. This weekend's illicit history with Pepe Escobar on the Silk Road, China and Russia. And snag your tickets. We I don't know what the count is, but we're in the final third for Philly World Cafe with Krystal Ball, Artesia Balthrop, Emma Vigeland, and we're 2 away from 3,000 patrons. So go for it. Patreon.com/TMBS.
Jamie.
This week on the Antifada, we celebrated Mischief Night with the scariest show on the internet, Minion Death Cult. It's very funny. If you guys have never heard it before, they find the scariest, most deranged, and just like cracked and weird posts on the internet from some baby boomers, but just like chuds of all ages, I think. And they read them slow enough to grasp their inanity. So we shared some dumb Halloween stories about our own lives. And then we looked at an evangelical plot to infiltrate Halloween stores. Then we commemorated last year's November 4th Antifa Super Soldier Revolution. Everyone remember that. And then we recalled the InfoWars attack on yours truly earlier this year. Seems like longer ago than that, but things are happening more than they used to these days. And we close it out with some Tim Pool Joker posting. Also, this week on our premium feed for our patrons, we have a new episode of History is a Weapon with Sean KB and Matt Chrisman. And they talk about, I could listen to those two talk about anything historical, but they talk about suburbia in this one and the invention of suburbia and the middle class as a way to conceal the class conflict undergirding everything in capitalist society. So part 1 is out now and part 2 will be out on Friday for our patrons. Patreon.com/theantifada.
And Matt.
A literary hangover. I did a sort of materialist episode on the materialist and political origins of the Salem witch trials. So check that out for Halloween.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920 is the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457-238-56-27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey Sam, hey Andy, you guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey! Shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. This just happened on The View today, where John McCain's daughter, I think her name is Meghan. I think it's Meghan. is Meghan her middle name, or is her first name John McCain's daughter, Meghan McCain? Something like that. I'm not sure exactly. It doesn't matter. I think she goes by Meghan on this show. And here she is with Cory Booker. And the point is that gun owners are very responsible. Responsible gun owners is all we need. Okay? Now, the problem is that if you subject responsible gun owners to any type of responsible gun owner regulations, then what happens is they become slightly less responsible. They become almost like paramilitaries. Apparently, that is what Meghan McCain, or Miss John McCain's daughter, says.
And I want to know how you think you and Beto are going to go into red states and go to my brother's house and get his AR-15s, because let me tell you, he's not giving it back.
So my point is this, and I'm not where Beto is in the way he's been talking about this.
Good, because he's crazy.
Well, again, we should watch the way we talk about each other. Seriously, we can't tear the character of people down. We have different beliefs.
He has no problem doing it to me.
Yeah,
I mean, he was very nasty to me about this.
But you and I both know that just because somebody does something to us doesn't mean we show the same energy back to them.
I'm not running for president, with all due respect. And also, the way he talked about me inciting violence on this, I take very seriously, and I speak for a lot of red state Americans. Whether he likes it or you like it or not, there's a lot of Republicans you're going to have to win over. Just tell me semantically how you're going to get my brother's
Pause it for 1 second. I love this thing where, I love the fact that Cory Booker has just basically, told her that she's not being civil.
I want to hear what Beto said that was so nasty.
I unironically like Cory Booker.
Well, she said that she's inciting violence. And when she says that if you pass a law that says my brother can't own an assault weapon or have multiple assault weapons, and you try and pass that law, we're going to use those assault weapons to go and shoot all of you, or whoever comes and gets. We're going to shoot the cops.
And also, by the way, and then furthermore, as such, what Beto O'Rourke said about me inciting violence was incredibly irresponsible. Anyways, if you try to take my brother's gun, he'll kill you.
I wish Beto would say nasty things to me.
What Beto said was O'Rourke, she is almost giving people permission to be violent, which I think is fairly obvious.
I think that is
measured,
very measured. Actually, I would say that she keeps bringing it up so much that it's almost like she's creating an expectation that people should be violent.
Semantically, how you're going to get my brother's gun back?
Look, machine guns, we don't have them on the streets anymore, right? Because in the 1980s, we banned them. And we had a practical way to do that. From Australia to New Zealand, they banned them and they got them off the streets.
So you're going to go to my brother's house?
No,
So buyback means you would volunteer.
We can find the evidence-based way to accomplish this as a country. Other countries have done it. We did it with machine guns. Why are we playing into fear-mongers that want to give this vision that there's going to be people showing up at your house and taking your guns away? We have things that we can do that we all agree on that if I am president of the United States, I will get done.
Okay. Background checks and you're for mandatory gun buybacks. And again, it sounds one way in this room. I'm telling you how it sounds in Arizona.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. That's why Beto can't play into that narrative.
Between you and Beto,
okay, here's the deal right now. We gotta go. We're gonna go to break.
There you go. It's much more important that we sell soap than listen to John McCain's daughter continue on with this thing of how you don't understand. If you pass a law that people I represent don't like, they will shoot you. And don't you dare say that I am inciting violence. I'm just warning all of you, don't do it or you're going to get shot.
Yeah, good luck taking my brother's gun. By the way, saying I'm inciting violence, I took that like seriously. My father was John McCain.
She's not inciting violence. She just likes the idea of her brother shooting a cop that came for his machine gun.
That's the thing, is that we are destroying free speech in this country, where you cannot tell people that they will be shot if they attempt to pass a law you don't like. Or if you criticize people, I should say.
Also, her brother's not going to do shit.
Who's her brother?
He's welcome to try.
I like the
Some
idea
other
of cop
McCain.
killing bullets.
When
I
is-
like the idea of cop killing bullets just piercing the body armor of police trying to take people's guns on an intellectual level. I mean, I see what you mean about that actually happening, probably being bad.
You know what?
But
I
on
would
an
like to
idea
see.
level,
I would like to
milk-fed
see
fail
someone
kids.
say to her. I would like to see someone say to her, like, "You got to finish that sentence. You want me to tell you semantically how we're going to take back your guns? Then you need to semantically tell me who your brother's going to be shooting at, because your brother's going to be shooting at, in your scenario, police officers." Are you telling me you're telling me that your brother doesn't have the ability to control himself and not shoot his assault weapon at police officers? Then maybe the definition of a responsible gun owner is a little bit different than we thought it was.
They're all a bunch of big trust fund babies. They're not going to do much of anything.
There's a lot to lose for just maintaining, like, I'm willing to go to jail and be a cop killer so that I can keep my semi-automatic weapon that I use to, I don't know, shoot up watermelons in my backyard.
The cops would be so polite to a McCain, too, if it ever came down to a confrontation.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Look, we've carved a wooden one for you that you can hold in your hand and pretend is real.
It might work.
and he would still sound like the drop of that doctor.
This is
Feel like an effing black person.
This is both exciting and remains infuriating to me. So a month ago, California passed a law that made it illegal for NCAA schools to prohibit college athletes from making money on personal endorsements, in social media advertising, anything they could do outside of school to promote, to monetize their celebrity.
Video game likenesses.
Whatever it is. And California passed that law, and there was a lot of, like, strum and drang. What do you call that? Hubbub about how the NCAA would react. And what they did is the NCAA, because California is obviously, again, this, I don't know if any state had done it, but certainly the implications of doing this in one of the largest states in the country, obviously implicates the rest of the country. And so the NCAA voted to permit all athletes, college athletes, to use their likeness or benefit from the use of their name and their image or whatnot. And so here it is. Bill Hemmer has had a big problem with this for a long time. Not quite clear why. But and to a certain extent, this guy who's on with him,
Jim Gray,
longtime sports guy. He's really trying to be gentle with Bill here, and I think he senses, like, he's probably worked with guys in the business who sometimes have a little bit of a problem, with what happens when they come back from lunch. If you know what I'm saying, sometimes back in the old days. You drink, you liquid lunches. So I don't know. He's sensitive to other people, probably. He also is addressing, to a certain extent, there's a real problem with this, of course, because all the student athletes are required to do all the work. They're doing work. And the fact of the matter is, it may be your quarterback, which makes your team so great. But the fact is, if you don't have any linemen there showing up and taking a beating, you're still not going to be able to make millions upon millions of dollars for your school. That's just the bottom line. Even the lowest ranking of these, NCAA teams, at least in Division I, are raking in big bucks for their schools. But here is Gray trying to be very gentle and explain it to Bill Hemmer, who just still has it in his mind, like, hey, you're getting a free education, which of course amounts to basically you're getting a free opportunity to work out and then make money for this school.
Different with LeBron James or Aaron Rodgers or the stars of a team who are making a heck of a lot more than perhaps the lineman or somebody who's way down on the bench. So I think we're going to have a hierarchy and a pecking order, and it will change things, and it may alter that. but it's just so long overdue. I mean, you cannot have amateurism in a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's just not the way things should be done.
They do get a full ride, board, books, tuition, a little bit of stipend on the side. So you pay your star quarterback $2 million, Jim. What do you pay the center who stands over him?
Well, right now they're not
Pause
being...
it. Now, I think, Jim, and we should go back a little bit. Jim has to take a pause for a moment because he's trying to understand in the football that we play in the United States, it is the quarterback that stands over the center. The center is the one who is bent over and passing the ball through his legs to the quarterback. And so Jim Gray had to take a moment to sort of process what Bill Hemmer was trying to say.
If a center is standing over the quarterback, it means the quarterback's probably sacked. So maybe
That's
we
right.
don't pay the center that much.
Exactly. Somebody missed their assignment.
Board, books, tuition, a little bit of stipend on the side. So you pay your star quarterback $2 million, Jim. What do you pay the center who stands over him?
Well, right now they're not being paid. They're allowed to cash in on Facebook or Instagram or go out and get a commercial or do something with one of these companies who wants to use their name and likeness. So it's not as though the college now is going to turn around and start paying these athletes. Your question really isn't in the realm of what's being considered right now, even though it should be considered.
Okay, so at some point, perhaps that is considered, depending on how this unfolds, because we really don't understand what the parameters are. You can use your image or likeness and how it all works.
What? We know exactly what the parameters are. You can use your image or your likeness. That's a very easy thing to contemplate. The bottom line, though, is that, frankly, what they should do is allow that to happen, of course. And then they should have a base salary scale for everybody, period. No hierarchy in who gets paid. Everybody gets an equal share of a percentage of what the revenue is that the school generates from it. Or maybe you do it the revenue that the division that you're in or the conference that you're in gets. Easy ways of doing this. But the idea that, I mean, frankly, I think it's just not fair. It's just not fair. They are students and they are generating cash. They should all get paid.
Everyone
that
gets a
might give
participation
ideas
trophy.
to other workers that they're also entitled to the fruits of their labor.
I mean, we have the same issue with interns. You can have free interns going around, working to the extent that that these football players do. It's not appropriate.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Even this now, it's like players can profit by being used by a corporation to basically make their brand look good. They don't actually get any sort of cut of the revenue they're actually creating.
I mean, the only thing they could do, right, exactly. And then, and I don't even think it's good for the sport to make it about endorsements and stuff like that. If anything, maybe you could say no endorsements. Just everybody gets a base salary. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, this is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. How are you, sir?
Good. Pretty good show so far, semantically, at least.
From a semantic standpoint, yeah, of course.
I've got a conspiracy theory that I'd like to tap into the hive mind of the Majority Report to see if we can substantiate. So you had Tim Heidecker on, and I've been listening to or watching his show on cinema for a while now, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And so for folks that don't know, the character he plays is kind of a bozo who stumbles into a lot of these right-wing ideas and becomes sort of like a right-winger. So the first time he had any sort of political ideas on the show, was season 2, episode 5, and he does a little 60-second soapbox, and he sounded exactly like Dave Rubin.
This is episode 5?
Season 2, episode 5.
Okay.
He does a little 60-second soapbox. So my conspiracy is that Dave Rubin watched on cinema, thinking it was an actual movie review show, and then became radicalized by the Tim Heidecker character. And so, in terms of because with a good conspiracy theory, you start with the premise and work backwards.
Right.
So for the folks at home, if you could help by, we can clip up clips from on cinema.
Now, just to be clear,
from Dave Rubin.
This is episode 205. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was in March of 2013. Probably would have been the first week, maybe the end of the first week, March 7th, 2013.
Right.
And if I am not mistaken, it was about Oz, right? The Wizard of Oz? Oz the Great and Powerful?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's about halfway through that episode.
Yeah, I believe it's about at minute 7 or so. But I don't know specifically.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that we could come up with a pretty compelling timeline with the help of the friends of the show.
Right.
Just playing these things back to back, and maybe with the help of you guys know Anna Kasparian, maybe they've got some good TYT archive footage. Maybe Dave, right around the same time as Tim Heidecker, started expressing concerns about regulations.
Well,
and I think it's
worth noting to see where Dave Rubin was in 2013, what he was doing.
I just watched the most powerful documentary on ideas and politics I had ever seen. See, I thought I was liberal because I was gay and I liked Michael Dukakis in a student election. But then I watched this documentary, and the whole idea was that freedom was actually not helped by taking arsenic out of the drinking water. It really made me think. Jank, I want 6 figures.
Because they have lots of good ideas about movies.
And there was also ideas about movies.
They started talking about politics.
If people send the clips, we will do a short mini documentary on it, because I think this is something that's worth exploring. I mean, it may be, you may have stumbled on something and we may have cracked the code.
I thought Jank really underpaid me for I'm gay and trying to navigate the ACA website material.
Right.
And it felt really bad.
Appreciate the call. You already hung up. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Josh from Chicago.
Josh from Chicago. How are you?
I'm good, Sam. I still have your Wyatt Coke shirt. Just, I'll bring it to you. Don't worry. Thank you for lending it to me.
All right.
And if you want me to watch it using the special instructions,
yes,
I will.
With Downy, not machine washed. Go ahead.
No, special dry cleaning. I want to talk about the teachers' strike, because I spent a few days on the picket lines with the teachers. I know you guys were talking about it earlier, but I talked with a few teachers, especially the thing that right now seems to be the biggest problem is special ed classes. They're outnumbered. Like I talked with one teacher who said that she has 13 kids in her class, 10 are in wheelchairs, and I think she's on the south side, and she said that she can't, there's no medical assistant to help change things like diapers or things like that. And there was another teacher who basically, a lot of these schools also don't have access to nurses every day. It seems disproportionate that in white neighborhoods that schools are mostly white, they have access to nurses every day. There was one other special ed teacher who said that they had to wait 2 hours for a kid's parent to come pick him up because he was throwing up. And the nurse was not there that day, and of course they can't call 911 because they don't know what the insurance policies are that the kid or kid's parents have. And I think from the sense I got, although there's rumors that this could possibly end today, a lot of teachers felt like they didn't actually get what they wanted in 2012, and they're actually not going to stop or not going to be satisfied till they actually get something substantive and not like a half measure. And it's particularly depressing too, because a lot of these teachers, some of these people, at least some of the people I talked to, they might have to go on food stamps soon. Because, of course, they got their last paycheck last week, at least, and they aren't going to get one this week. And, but I don't know. I think, to me, I wouldn't expect this to end soon. But I also think, to me, there's been I don't want to say people have misreported it. Your show hasn't. But this is as much about, like, class conditions, class size, and also in terms of, like, this is definitely a class warfare. It's not just, like, teachers, like, I mean, they are arguing for more pay, but this is, I mean, the conditions that we're allowed to fester under a manual it's pretty shocking. I mean, I was pretty shocked when I heard a lot of this stuff.
In terms of, and just in terms of like of class size and what you talk about, I mean, I have a friend who
it seems like every school should have a nurse, right?
Yeah.
You know, like that seems to me like it's basic, right? Like what happens if I get sick? I can't go to a nurse. There's no medical professional to take care of me.
Maybe you build character.
And you need a much higher ratio for special ed classes. I mean, you just do. And they have different tiers of classes in terms of high functioning and, whether people are on a track to be mainstreamed or not. But either way, as exhausting as being a teacher is, special ed classes are that much more exhausting because you need to be constantly, making sure that the kids are doing okay, and they just require a lot more attention.
Yeah, and like a lot of people, I think someone said they're like, look, it's very hard to get, like the effort that it takes to get through to some of these, kids, because, I mean, some of the, like, one of the teachers said, like, some of these people, like, are barely, like, they have severe, like, disabilities, and so it's, like, very hard to get through to them, but they are really trying to, like, make an impact. And I think I would encourage anyone, if you're in Chicago, please go and stand on a picket line with these people. Because, I mean, first of all, it's actually a very unifying experience. It's actually a very uplifting experience to be on a picket line. There's people are dancing, people are singing. It's very much an experience of solidarity, but they also want to see people who aren't necessarily part of the education community there. And I would also go look at the schools that are being underfunded. It's pretty easy to see that the ones that are being underfunded are in largely Latino and Black communities. Right. And go there, because that's where you see some of these horror stories that are coming out. Lori Lightfoot walked into a lot of Emmanuel's shit show, but these people feel betrayed by her because she promised them essentially what the CTU website mission statements are, and she is engaged in some bizarre power play.
Yeah.
Josh, before you get off the phone, I have a question for you.
Yes, Right-Wing Mandela.
Should you and I be coordinating our schedules while we are both in Chicago?
You want to walk the picket line with me?
Vis-a-vis visiting, of course not, visiting your mother's house. Boom!
Talk later.
All right. Bye, Josh. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Yes, you go out and show solidarity. Very good. So stupid. I love it.
Calling from a 786 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Samantha. Have you missed me?
It sounds like no. He hasn't.
Hey guys, how's it going? Tony from Miami.
Tony from Miami, how have you been?
Could have fooled me.
It's been a long time. Hey, hello, Jamie and Matt and Mike. It's been a while, man. I especially wanted to call because last week I did listen. I've been listening all the time. I just don't get to call much because of school and stuff. Oh, also, I had a second child.
Oh, congratulations. Well, there you go. Let's give you one.
Thank you.
Well done.
I missed that sound. I especially I wanted to call because I especially took the interview you had with I forgot who it was, the lady who was talking about pretty much like benefits, welfare, Medicaid, stuff like that, and how they kind of change rules and stuff. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, like I'm trying to like apply for like food stamps, right? And my wife and I are in a particular situation where, although currently I'm not working anymore, I quit my security job.
Yeah.
And I'm a full-time student now. And basically, she is the breadwinner. Okay, she brings in most of the money, but she doesn't really make much. Maybe 25 a year, if that. Unfortunately, we weren't able to qualify for food stamps. Right? When we asked why, they told me, well, although he is a student, he's not working 80 hours a week, so he doesn't qualify for food stamps. Yet, when I was once working 80 hours a week and I was a part-time student and applied, they told me that I couldn't qualify because I wasn't a full-time student. Okay, so some of the rules, I believe, maybe it's my personal opinion, but some of the rules, actually, maybe what she's saying kind of is true, that they don't always target a particular demographic. They'll mostly go for, in my opinion, what I see is they lean more toward a system where you basically need to be dirt poor in order to qualify. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong or anything like that, but when you are trying to do what you can to provide for your family and you notice that, you can't do it on your own because you're a full-time student not able to work, and you're trying to apply for these benefits, they kind of give you the runaround to tell you, like, well,
yeah,
you're not able to qualify because you have a car. Just this week, my wife, we applied for financial aid, and they bombarded her with questions that they never asked her before. Oh, do you have a car? Since when did you own the car? Do you have a bank account? Do you have any money in your bank account? And these are questions I feel that are targeted to those who do make some kind of money and then feel like, okay, well, you have a job, you don't qualify. Okay, we were able to qualify for food stamps, but we only got it for like maybe 3 months. After the 3 months, it was done. We weren't able to get any more. Now, on top of that, we've also tried to apply for like Medicaid and like Medicare.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of me being married to my wife, and this is what they told us. They told us that us being married are points against us, which I find that to be utterly ridiculous.
This is you're applying for Medicaid, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true of a lot of social assisted services. And then, the right wants to turn around and blame poor people for not getting married.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Right? That now, when we also try to qualify for child daycare services, which is, to help lower the cost on the daycare, they also told us that points against us was because we were married.
Well, I mean, look.
And so my child couldn't qualify.
Yeah.
But if we had another child and then my wife still had the same income, then we could qualify.
Right.
But we would have to have another child. To me, honestly, even when you're really doing the right thing and actually just you need help, no matter what, I feel like in a way they'll find a way just to kind of like just tell you, well, no, sorry, you qualify because you married your wife.
I mean, some states have, particularly in terms of Medicaid, it's block granted,
especially here in Florida.
And they what that does is it allows states to it incentivizes them to deny as many people as they can so that they can divert those funds into other places. And in terms of food stamps, I think also the states have I think there's a similar dynamic in terms of SNAP assistance. I know in some places, I think the work school requirements are different, but I think you also have about either somewhere between half a month and 3 months to appeal your denial. But again, this is a state by state type of situation. So
I'm stuck on 80 hours a week. That's insane.
That seems insane to me.
Thank you. And that's what I said. I said, look, I'm not currently working full-time any longer because I'm a full-time student.
I don't care if you're working full-time
anyways.
anyways. 80 hours a week is absurd. It's an absurd amount of time to be required.
I'm seeing, again, look this up, but Infinite Content on Twitter tells me that his mother was a caseworker. And basically, the federal guidelines say 20 hours a week. You are eligible for full. If you go to school full time and work 20 hours a week, you're eligible for full food stamps.
This is and in a way, it kind of it came to a point where me and my wife just kind of looked at each other and like, we're not going to get any help. Like, we're not going to get anything. The fact that
they want you to give up.
Car,
I think that is.
It shouldn't matter because we got our car way before we even needed assistance, So
Right.
now that we need assistance, we had a car because we had that since 2015.
Well, Tony, you should try and call. There's a, I don't know if this is a TRLS.org, legal aid for public benefits in Florida, 877-758-8692. Look, the bottom line is that a lot of times what they do, particularly with these federal programs that are executed by states, but also like things like HAMP was a similar type of dynamic, that they try and make it as difficult as possible for people to access it.
Yeah.
And
especially, and I'm sorry, but I'm noticing that they make it especially difficult for those who are actually a married couple.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be really honest with you. My parents qualified for Section 8 only because my mom stated that they were divorced. So she lied when we lived in New York. The only way she could get Section 8. Okay, because even in 1990, rent was not cheap in New York, especially in the South Bronx. Doesn't matter where. Truly, it doesn't matter where in New York. It's expensive, even in the 90s. And my mom lied. She told me she lied. For years. I remember having to hide my dad's clothes under their platform bed when inspection was that day. Why? That way we could have a roof over our head. Because although my mom was a special ed assistant teacher for a daycare right in Westchester Square, my dad was an accountant. So he made to them enough money to live on their own, but they couldn't, honestly. Okay? And that was with a 2-bedroom apartment and 2 kids. Okay? And now I've talked to plenty of friends that, I have benefits and stuff. And they all told me that what we did wrong was tell the truth. Can you believe that?
I literally had this.
Yep.
I had actually a very similar experience specifically with Section 8 at times growing up.
Well, I think you're illustrating in a very vivid way the ways in which means testing is used to criminalize and police the lives of low-income people.
Jamie, you're pretty much kind of spot on because my wife is the one who applies for all this stuff. She doesn't use me because I told her, look, for some reason, just don't use me. Go ahead and apply and stuff like that. Okay, do it under your name and stuff. When she was doing it under her name, she got all the benefits she could from my 2 kids. As soon as she added me into the program and said that we were married, that's when we started losing benefits and actually getting cutbacks on our benefits. Although I'm a full-time student and not working.
Hang in there. Try calling legal aid services and see what they can do. And do it quick because you don't want any deadlines to pass.
No, definitely. Thank you very much for the information.
Tony, I'm sorry you're going through this, man. Hang in there.
Yeah,
and
solidarity.
keep us updated.
It's all good, man.
Solidarity.
Hey, it's all good. I'm doing good with school now. I got a degree now. Now I'm working on getting my bachelor's, and so I'm not really worried about it. It's just that it's kind of upsetting. And, that interview actually just, kind of highlighted and really just, brought home some of the things that I was thinking about these programs anyways. That, although they tell you that it's okay, you go apply, they actually do have a point system which kind of hurts you if you are a married couple.
All right, hang in there, man. Keep us updated.
I will, Sam.
All right. Good to hear from you.
You guys
again.
have a great one.
All right,
All right,
bye-bye.
love you guys, man.
Bye-bye.
Love you back.
Horrible. Yeah, folks have any resources? I mean, I guess I don't know how we would get them to him, but I think they're out there at least. A couple of places just to find out some information on where he can challenge those decisions on some level. But to a large extent, this is when we talk about things like Medicare for all, where you don't have to go in and prove all sorts of different measures of your moral righteousness so that you can get health care for you and your family. That's the reason why.
Housing guarantee, same thing.
Exactly. And
honestly, one of the worst parts of going to like college every semester was that FAFSA thing that you have to fill out for like financial aid and like
Right.
It just, what are you doing?
It's creepy.
Knock this off.
It's creepy. Speaking of creepy, I mean, we've all, we talk about this and, let's listen to Biden first. Let's get Biden first. Here's Joe Biden. He's getting asked a question. It's interesting. If you read Joe Biden's response, his response sounds pretty bad. It's a different when you experience it with a room full of people who seem to, at the very least, find his response amusing. Personally, I think it's a little bit gross. And I don't know where he's going with it. I don't know how long. Does this clip end really early, or do we?
I got about 45 seconds of it.
Okay. All right, here it is. Here's Joe Biden. He is in Columbia, South Carolina. This is his firewall, folks. He's already starting to, his campaign's already starting to freak out because they are starting to suspect that he's going to lose in Iowa and lose in New Hampshire, possibly, and by lose, I don't mean come in second. I mean, he could come in third or fourth even in certain instances. And they are now basically laying it out there and saying, like, well, we don't really care about Iowa and New Hampshire. South Carolina is our firewall. But look, I keep saying this over and over again. There's a lot of polling out there. The polling is, it's close enough right now and varies enough that we really can't tell. It's not going to be terribly predictive. If Sanders' theory is correct, then the organization that he'll be doing and building on the ground will help him win Iowa, and that's going to implicate what people in New Hampshire do and what people in South Carolina do. Warren and Buttigieg have poured a ton of money into Iowa. So if either one of them, I mean, certainly if Pete Buttigieg wins, I mean, who knows? But if Warren wins in Iowa and then she wins or comes in a close second in New Hampshire, that's going to change the tenor of the race too. But nevertheless, here is Joe Biden in South Carolina, his firewall, and I don't know how he gets away with this. I don't know that he will actually long term. But here he is addressing the question of, basically what I think centers around the, the talk that my understanding is a lot of black parents have to give to their kids because when they interact with the police, the implications of it are dramatically different than when kids, when white kids do. Here's Joe Biden offering a very, very empathetic and understanding response.
Pulled over for routine traffic stops and end up dead. If I were your daughter, what advice would you give me the next time I ain't stopped by the police?
If you were my daughter, you'd be a Caucasian girl and you wouldn't be pulled over. That's what's wrong. That is what's wrong. There is institutional racism that still exists. And what it should require is every police department in America should have to go through what they used to call, back when I first got started in the women's movement, sensitivity training. For example,
When he got started in the women's movement?
What?
And sensitivity training? No. What needs to happen is the Department of Justice needs to be examining all the records of police forces, and particularly close examination if they hit a threshold of stops over a certain amount with some type of racial disparity. I mean, sensitivity training is not going to work at this point.
Famously not useful in any context, really.
I was the guy who said you pull him out of the car, you beat him, you don't kill him. That was 1983.
The cops are being insensitive when they kill unarmed black people.
The bottom line is there needs to be punitive action by the Department of Justice. And how we know, one way of knowing how that it's effective is it's the first thing that Jeff Sessions did when he got into office was to basically say to all the police departments around the country, if you are under some type of decree by the Justice Department, we're going to lift that. And you as cops should know that we as cops are not on the beat in terms of making sure that you're doing your job as cops. They know the efficacy of that. Because when the prosecutors have a problem with what you're doing and it go after you, it's the same dynamic. It's the exact same thing the cops would say about anything. If you don't lock up some people, you're not going to send the right message. And there should be implications. There should be not sensitivity training. There should be specific restrictions on police departments that, and there should be, they should be filing a lot more data as to their stops, et cetera, et cetera. There needs to be policy changes, not just like touchy-feely sessions.
Well, have they tried leaving the record player on in police stations?
That's right.
Play the record player. They learn things.
Oh, forgive me, Father Freibsen.
I mean, the joke itself was not so bad, right? He was trying to make a joke about how the cops are racist, but anytime he does something like that, we just need to remind everyone the role that he's played in mass incarceration.
Yep.
I remember Halle Berry. That was another date. That was after Bobby Kennedy got killed. Everything went in the 80s.
So here is, let's play this. This is the TYT stuff. This is, the TYT, the investigative team has been pretty hot on the case of Buttigieg in South Bend and what's happening there. And, Buttigieg has a real problem with black voters. In terms of coming around, and this is this is not just simply I think to a certain extent what Buttigieg is trying to do is make it about the fact that he's gay and married, and
he would love for it to be about that.
And there may be, to some extent, there may be some truth to it in the context of a lot of the southern states. Tends to be socially more conservative people going to church. There's definitely some homophobia in this church.
That is cross-demographic, though. So if he has Democratic African-American voters, it's very lined up now in terms of equality. So in terms of gay equality. So if he's trying to pivot it on that, that's a bit dishonest.
Well, yes, I think it is dishonest. I mean, it may show up more in the relative to the Democratic Party because you have less white. You have less You have less white voters.
Sure,
in
but
the
it's
Democratic
a geographic Party. More so than racial thing, right?
And so, but the other reason why he has a problem with black voters is because of the way that he's been dealing with the black community in South Bend. And there are police tapes that were ultimately, that apparently resulted in the demotion of the city's first black police chief. And now there's continued to be a demand that we want to hear these tapes that led to this demotion. We want to know what was on them. And here is some folks in the South Bend black community calling for the release of these tapes.
Fury among some in South Bend that the police tapes have yet to be heard by the public. However, a national news and current events organization called the Young Turks, or TYT, has reported the tapes contain plans to influence Mayor Pete Buttigieg to put certain people in positions of power in the police department. Those tapes led to the demotion of Police Chief Daryl Boykins and the communications director getting fired. The mayor's presidential campaign calling the TYT reporting unsubstantiated allegations and rumors.
The reality is there's no legal justification for the tapes not to be heard. It's cost millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and now we've got a city council that's arguing over whether the tapes should be played.
Last week, 16 News Now reported the South Bend Common Council met behind closed doors to discuss whether or not they should go forth with a 7-year lawsuit over the tapes being released publicly. Council President Tim Scott said in a statement, the Young Turks has for the first time revealed documents that could independently establish what is on the recordings without the need to actually listen to the recordings.
This will not go away until what is on the tapes has been made public to the citizens.
Like Mario said, there's no reason why we haven't been given this Band-Aid, if you will, this wound healing information that we need.
As for a comment on the story, the mayor's office spokesman told me that, quote, right now the tapes are under court order and we are awaiting the judge's decision.
Right. And now you got to ask yourself, why wouldn't you release the tapes? There's two reasons, right? One could be that the way that the people are talking on these tapes, and I don't know who the tapes are between necessarily. Do we know exactly?
It's like cops on the force.
Cops. How they're talking about different people in the community might be offensive to different people in the community. That could be part of it. And it's just like a decorum thing. But when you're talking about spending millions of dollars in not providing this type of transparency, it starts to reek of there is a problem there. And, you know, this isn't like the municipal security of South Bend. If somehow the criminals hear about our police procedures, we're going to be, national. Like, what is the excuse for this? There is no excuse. There is no excuse. We're just so trained to sort of accept this idea of like, well, government secrets. I mean, like, what is the national security interest here? It's absurd. It's absurd.
That was such a actual lesson for you talking just in general about secrecy of the Manning, what she exposed in terms of not only the criminal wrongdoing of so much U.S. foreign policy, but just also the incredible crazy doublespeak of the national security state, because it was like, this is all life and death stuff, and these are top secret cables, and having it be exposed is going to jeopardize everybody. And oh yeah, she was a relatively low level, intelligence officer, and this stuff was basically accessible to thousands of people, just sort of general internet traffic. Like, overclassification is a major issue in and of itself.
Yeah, and people should follow Jonathan Larson of TYT Investigates. He's done all this work basically, and just to reportedly, one of the cops on the tapes, a guy named Tim Corbett, was said a whole bunch of racist things, including things about the new black sheriff and about how his race and how he was upset about that. Corbett later, last year, he ran for sheriff. And he had a loan underwritten by 3 different guys. One of them was his lawyer during the whole tapes thing. The second one was Pete Buttigieg's special counsel during the tapes thing. And the third was Pete Buttigieg's longtime, basically, political patron since day one.
Pete Buttigieg is absolutely horrible. He's an agent of corporations. He's an agent of Zuckerberg, and he managed a tiny college town with racism and gentrification.
By appeasing racist police force.
And he's getting funded by oligarchs. He is truly awful.
He's trying to be the new Biden, right? The new establishment candidate. But Biden refuses to die, so...
I mean, I personally think that Buttigieg is going to be a problem.
He is going to be a problem.
Well
I pick Biden over Buttigieg.
Absolutely.
We'll see. I mean, he could be. It's not inconceivable to me that he's like comes in 2 or 3 in Iowa.
Let's get after him now, folks.
Well, he has so much money, and he can just dump it there in such a small place.
Yep. And we'll see. Meanwhile, you'll recall the other day, Donald Trump announced to the world that al-Baghdadi was killed like a dog. Kudos to Jimmy Kimmel. This is clip number 9. They came up with the idea of comparing, because we keep saying, like, can you imagine if Obama had done this or something like that?
Bin Laden died like a dog.
They came
he was
up
begging for his life.
Clip number 9. Do you have it?
It was like a dog. I'll just do an Obama impression for a second. It's all right.
Well, and we've said this a million times. Like, what if Obama did this? And now we have a sort of an apples to apples type of comparison. Here's Jimmy Kimmel announcing how they decided to do this mashup here.
By the way, when Obama went on TV to announce that they'd killed bin Laden, he spoke for 9.5 minutes. Trump yesterday did 48 minutes on this. And for further comparison, we thought it might be fun to mash up Trump's speech about al-Baghdadi with Obama's about bin Laden, and we were right, it was.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
The United States launched a targeted operation against that compound.
They did a lot of shooting, and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in?
After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
He died like a dog.
But his death does not mark the end of our effort.
A beautiful dog. A talented dog.
We give thanks for the men who carried out this operation.
And I don't get any credit for this, but that's okay. I never do. But here we are.
May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And I'm writing a book. I wrote 12 books. All did very well.
That's really amazing. It's really amazing.
By the way, Dreams of My Father reissued in paperback. What?
I mean, it's funny, obviously, the difference in what Trump can get away with, but they are saying basically the same thing.
That is true. We both carried out
Without
extrajudicial murders of well, actually,
Exactly.
I mean, in some ways, even the Bin Laden raid is even more.
It's worse.
Yeah, I was going to say the Bin Laden raid is worse.
I mean, this was on a theoretically a battlefield. There's an ongoing hostilities. It seems like they could have gone in, and they definitely had the opportunity to take bin Laden, alive. And frankly, from trying bin Laden as opposed to al-Baghdadi, because that is more like on some level, trying bin Laden would have been far more of a gesture of showing, that our justice system works. One would imagine there might also be some measure of intelligence that would have been important to gather from bin Laden. But he was summarily executed. Bin Laden was. I mean, and I don't know the details quite yet of al-Baghdadi, but bin Laden, it was worse. There's no doubt. I mean, and at the time, there was very few people who were saying that this was wrong. But nevertheless, probably in both instances, not anything to go out and brag about. At least, Obama played the role of somebody who was sort of somewhat reluctant, I guess.
Well, in a way, I don't know. I might rather have the just insane grotesqueness of American imperial violence laid bare in the way that Trump does it than concealed beneath this like incredibly hypnotic and likable exterior that Obama always had.
I think
development series for Netflix in the works.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for that, but I also think that, sadly, it's not like anybody was offended at the act anymore because of Trump, the way that he came out about it. You didn't hear anybody saying, I'm not convinced that what happens when someone acts that way is that we really expose the true, barbarism. I think what happens is just
really?
like,
You don't think that liberals responded way better to Obama's speech than Trump's?
I think they responded better to the speech, but I haven't seen a single, if you see a piece that says that we should have captured al-Baghdadi as opposed to killing him, I'm open to it.
I thought that was a great bit. It was hilarious, but that kind of exposes exactly the point. The critique is all on aesthetics. No one is saying,
right. That's my point. And to the extent that there's a liberal critique of it, it's on aesthetics. To the extent that it's received by, the country, at least a certain percentage of them, it's basically all it does is it debases stuff more. It's I'm going to put a boot in their ass and, America, it's Lee Greenwood stuff.
I think it's extra grotesque, and a lot of people are noticing.
I think it illustrates something, but I also think I worry what kind of license Trump is giving.
That's my point.
That's
my point.
Like this.
That's my point.
I think it's making people relearn bad things about what they're capable of.
I also think the other thing. Ways. I just want to say, I don't care. I care about the structural problems, but I don't care about Baghdadi or Bin Laden dying at all. The context of the Pakistani raid also was a fake CIA vaccination program,
yes,
which they needed to get in order to match, I think, DNA with Bin Laden. So there was a strategic reason behind it, but the upshot was they didn't actually vaccinate people, so it was fake vaccinations, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know. And the bigger upshot is it
destroyed the vaccination program in Pakistan.
And as far as Nigeria, aid workers were under threat because actually people had some rightful there's such a massive skepticism across the world about even people doing, basic aid work, and people in the United States and their insularity are like, oh, why would you be skeptical? Well, because the rest of the world is quite aware of stories like that.
It was a closed end. They call it a closed end tunnel. Not a good place to be.
Calling from a 507.
They found him and wasn't a good place to be.
507 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Frederick from Minnesota. You can call me Fred.
Fred from Minnesota. What's on your mind?
So I'm looking at primary polls over the last month or two, and you see the same three names: Biden, Warren, and. But then you look at Minnesota, and it's Amy Klobuchar in a lot of those polls. And obviously, she's not going to win, and I feel ashamed as a Minnesotan when I see the bias in those polls from my fellow Minnesotans. But I was curious what you think about if Amy Klobuchar stays in the race until Super Tuesday. Would that help or hurt Warren? Not Warren, sorry, Bernie. Or do you think it wouldn't have any effect at all? Because
it's hard for me to imagine that. First of all, it's hard for me to imagine. Well, the three things. One is, I don't think bias is the word that you're looking for when you talk about it. People in Minnesota obviously like Amy Klobuchar enough to elect her to the Senate, and that's their preference. It's not a bias per se. I mean, I think that just we're too used to using the vernacular of there's some type of rigging or fixed. People have different opinions about different candidates. With that said, I'd be shocked if Klobuchar is there until Super Tuesday. The only way that she will be is if Biden gets so wrecked in Iowa that there is a general sense that he's going to have to drop out even before South Carolina, which would be hard to imagine. But that's the only scenario I can imagine Klobuchar staying in past Iowa, if she gets to Iowa for that matter. I mean, she has no money. And, right. And you know, at one point it starts to be like people around her start going like, why are we doing this? And so I don't know. I don't think Klobuchar's involvement in the race is really, obviously the more, so-called centrists that are in the race at any given time, the better it is theoretically for Bernie and for Warren. But I don't think it's going to be a huge factor. That's my guess. Appreciate the call.
Can you work on making Minnesota less biased?
I mean, that's the thing. I just don't like, there's just...
My opinion, you're biased, bro.
Yeah, that's just... I feel like we've fallen into it.
Words,
I don't like it.
Rigging and bias. And
I don't.
I don't like it.
Calling from a 308 area code. Who's
it.
this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Kowalski.
Kowalski.
Whoa, Barry White Kowalski.
From Nebraska. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to start a drinking game. Anytime Michael says, put it on the table, everyone takes a shot.
Okay. It's a little bit early in the day, but okay.
I kid you not. I have followed him on TMBS those last 2 weeks. That is like your number one phrase.
I thought it was disaggregate or Lula Libre. But okay, let's put it. All right. Hey, look, you put it on the table. Fair enough.
But hey, the reason I called in was because I actually wanted to get your guys' opinion on something.
Okay.
What do you think would be a better major third topic for a campaign? Immigration or trying to...
Gonna leave us hanging?
Kowalski?
He just hung up on us.
Man, he put it on and took it off the table, man. Educate the children of the city, but they are also putting on the table things having to do. Oh, by the way, things like rent control, which Josh neglected to mention. That's a major part of the teachers' strike in Chicago.
You put that on the table. Calling from a 702 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
702?
Hey, Sam, it's Bro Flamingo from Las Vegas.
Bro Flamingo from Las Vegas. What's on your mind?
Hey, I wanted to come visit you at the Bellagio, but I was like, Sam's going to be busy. Then you had the drunk guy at the table. I was like, next time I'm coming. If the drunk guy can come, Bro Flamingo can come. That's the way I feel.
That sounds pretty good to me. You just got to get into the conference, which means apparently you have to drink copious amounts of mimosas.
Did you give that guy the call-in number, by the way? Come on, man.
I don't think I'm ever going to hear from him again.
I would like follow-up content.
Real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Mary, who called me from the Bernie Sanders campaign. We had a really good conversation. I'm going to go caucus January 22nd and try to volunteer.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I just saw Bernie's up in the polls in Nevada.
I know, it's excellent. Can't wait. All right, guys, I got two quick things for you. The first one, serious. Second one, not that serious. First one, Sam, I was on a job interview. I was on my way to a job interview when I watched you and Tim Pool. It was like art. It was like, oh my God, this is great. But then again though, when you watch like Tim Pool, you could tell it's like a grift. You could tell like he's like a dingbat. But like you know, because I kind of felt like he's not a diehard at all. He's just sitting there playing like the most mental gymnastics, like the most kind of like the most disingenuous mental gymnastics. So you're just sitting there, you're just like, yeah, I'm dunking on him, but this is kind of shitty. I want somebody who's like a real MAGA head. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. There was no...
You read him deep.
Yes. In other words, there was no joy. And it was a joyless exercise for me. It definitely is absolutely true.
It's like when your cat brings home a dead bird and it keeps playing with it, even though it knows it's already dead.
Yeah, it was... and then I have a slightly different understanding of Tim now, and I think maybe we might need to take a second round. Because I feel like I should probably have him on this show And, because maybe we need to just revisit, but we'll see.
The world is overpopulated and some must die. Do you hear me, Tim?
The cringiest part was, I'm sorry, Mike, real quick. The cringiest part was, oh, I'm half white and half Korean, and I'm just, I have no community next Y and Z. Oh my God. Okay, whatever, dude. Anyways, and my serious question, and I want all you guys to answer, especially Mike. Look, Donald Trump is basically nuking the status quo foreign policy, and I don't think the damage is going to be over. Okay, I think he's going to keep doing stupid things, just rearrange the status quo. And Mike, you had David Bessner on, and he was talking about how in Southeast Asia, once we start withdrawing, the reset button is going to be hit. In the context of a Bernie Sanders presidency, especially Bernie Sanders, is this the perfect time to hit the reset button on foreign policy? Because in my eyes, I think Donald Trump is just basically disintegrating the status quo, and we really have the opportunity now just to literally hit the reset button with President Bernie Sanders and just be like, look, this is the foreign policy. The only problem I do see is probably pushback from the military-industrial complex, but otherwise, I just see an opportunity here. Of course, there's going to be pain. Of course, people are going to be immiserated, but we can really hit the reset button now with kind of the old order status quo going away and these guys kind of dying off and just Trump, just wrecking things up. And I'm going to jump. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks.
I think that's very true in many ways. The part I think is totally true is that you're not going to go back to the pre-Trump, pre-right-wing authoritarian emergence, and that you do need someone who's willing to actually dial back U.S. empire, basically cut military spending and center other things in foreign policy. On the other hand, I don't really like the frame. I think Trump is an accentuation of U.S. foreign policy. I think he's a fulfillment of it. I think that he's disrupting some norms, and there's debates within the consensus.
I think he's destroying the institution, the institutions of our foreign policy.
I think that's true to some extent. Although even Vali Nasser wrote a great piece in the New York Review of Books, even implicating Obama in just diplomacy as a craft, regardless of what you think of the State Department and U.S. overall foreign policy, which again, I'm not a fan of. Diplomacy as an area relative to military expenditure has been starved for decades and totally delegitimized, with really the exception of the Iran deal. I mean, that was, and obviously to Obama's credit, although there was a precursor deal that Turkey and Brazil negotiated that he didn't support. But regardless, I think in terms of institutionally, you're right, but in terms of kind of aggressive neocon foreign policy, because I don't buy this isolationist I'm opposed to war thing for a second.
Yeah, no.
This guy redeployed troops to another part of Syria. They're not even getting pulled out after he betrayed the Kurds, and he's the military's arms sales are a major part of U.S. foreign policy, which he adds on. He's deployed troops to Saudi. Civilian casualties are at a global high, and I'm sorry to kind of rant here, but if you had a president who was genuinely isolationist, it would pose interesting questions and debates, because we do really need to dial back. But that is not Trump, and it's really a spin.
No, like I said before, he's laying it bare. He's doing the same stuff that the U.S. has always done, but he doesn't have the sense to pretend that we're doing it for humanitarian reasons or to spread democracy, right? He's like, oh no, we're making this deal because it benefits us economically. Duh.
Yeah, I'm also not convinced that it benefits us economically is also the measure of why he's making deals. I think I honestly think that to the extent that that is a divergence from our typical foreign policy, is that it's not ideological. And it's not even founded in a typical notion of what is in our national interest, which has been largely defined by our corporate interest. I think he just is national interest is equivalent to my interest, and not me, Sam Seder, but me, Donald Trump.
Well, he has said some stuff about arms sales to Saudi Arabia and how they benefit the U.S. economy, right?
Yeah, but
in taking credit for it, 'cause he did it.
I think that is more of an alibi, because it's not like he's, I don't know, selling arms. I think he's selling arms to people that he has some business interest with. That is my guess. All right. Final call of the day. Calling from a 501 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 501? 501?
Yeah.
Who's this?
Hey, hello.
Hello.
Hey, it's Philip from Little Rock.
Philip from Little Rock. What's on your mind? You are the final caller of the day.
Ha ha, I rock. Okay, so we are facing an impending teacher strike in the Little Rock School District.
Oh, that's
exciting.
exciting.
And I just thought you guys might like to, get some inside info on it. My wife is a school teacher in the district, and just to give you a little background, in 2015, the governor, Asa Hutchinson, and the State Board of Education dissolved the locally elected school board and took over control of the district, ostensibly because there were some failing schools, whatever that means. And so there were 48 schools in the district, and I think there were 6 that supposedly had like D and F ratings. So that's been going on for several years. And then last November, they attempted to remove something called the Fair Teacher Dismissal Act. And so they were kind of finagling around in that time period. But then just recently, they did what I guess they call it decertified the Little Rock Education Association, which is the union.
Yeah.
And so here we are, and it looks like maybe on Monday, all indication is that Monday there's going to be a work action. So.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. All right. Well, thanks for letting us know. We'll keep an eye open for it.
Can you tell us in 30 seconds, like where we could follow it or support it or anything like that?
Well, I think on Facebook there's several groups. Let me see if I can. Anyway, I don't know. I may have to just call back next week and kind of give you guys a heads up on how things are going. But we're totally behind it, and it's just people are legitimately kind of freaking out, but it's exciting, but it's also scary. So anyway.
All right, appreciate the
Good thing
call.
the Clintons aren't there this time to put it down.
I'm right. Well, no, now we got Asa, so whatever. They're all trying to put it down.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate the call.
Okay. Hey, appreciate you guys. Bye.
Bye. That's it, folks. That's it for calls today. That's it for everything. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid.